but but do feel free to come in at any point if you have any questions. And so, Adam, Ash, it's lovely to see you again after so long, a couple of days or whatever it was. I'm really delighted that you've joined us here tonight for this webinar. And I'm racking my brains to remember the precise title, but I think it's about getting, I think the title is Getting Clear About Performance. And so even though I know you well and I've heard you speak many times, I'm looking forward to that again, because I have got so much out of listening to you on different occasions. I think that perhaps best thing is if I just hand it over to you to take it whatever way you want to go.
Right. Okay. You ready for this?
I am. Strapped in.
It's good to be here, Christian, and looking forward to doing this. It's been a wee while actually since I've done one of these live webinars, so good to be back. But yeah, just for anybody that doesn't know me or hasn't met me or who's watching this back or whatever, I guess I'm a good candidate for this title, as what I work as my kind of day job as a professional athlete, a professional rugby player. And yeah, I guess it's the world of performance, so it's a perfect title for me to speak to. I'll give you a little bit of background on me and stuff like that, just to kick it off. So I live here in Glasgow and play for a rugby team called Glasgow Warriors. I've been at the club for, must have been 6 years now, so I've just turned 25 2 days ago, and yeah, I was lucky enough to go straight into professional rugby straight from school, and I've been here at the Warriors ever since. Absolutely love it. Wouldn't want to be doing anything else. It's I guess a bit of a dream come true. One of those fortunate people that yeah, I had a dream of playing professional rugby, and it managed to come true, so I'm very, I guess, lucky in that respect. But yeah, when it comes to, I guess, why I'm here speaking today, or why I'm even involved in conversations like this, I've always kind of had an interest in psychology and, I guess, performance in general. I think as a young athlete, you look into the different things that you can do in order to get the most out of your performance. Quite a natural thing. A lot of young athletes and a lot of athletes in my team do a similar sort of thing. When I was about 16, I first was introduced to sports psychology through one of my coaches at the time, and it was all work around sort of visualization and you know, like positive thinking and that kind of thing. And from that moment on, I got really, really interested in it, because sometimes I would find that it had a real benefit, and then other times I would find that it didn't. But one thing that I noticed very early on is that it was a lot of hard work, keeping up with the visualization techniques and all the different kind of techniques that you do. And being a young lad, I guess, you know, you do them sometimes and you don't do them other times, and you know, it's a bit of a hit or a miss. So that was really what sparked a bit of interest into I guess looking into psychology, and then, you know, more so now it's really spirituality and the essence of what we all are. But one thing that I noticed pretty early on as a youngster playing sport week in, week out, was that sometimes I would run out onto the pitch, or even in training, I would go out and I would be very clear, and it would be really effortless. There wouldn't be much effort that went into expressing myself or playing or performing well. It really just sort of happened, and it didn't seem like it was difficult. And it's crazy saying that, because it looks difficult. But it just felt so free at times, and it just felt so natural. And in those times, I would feel like I had so much time on my hands. Like when I had the ball in hand or when I was approaching a tackle, it would feel like things couldn't go wrong. And it was something that I clicked onto really early on in my career. But there was also an opposite to that, because I guess in this relative world, there's always a good for a bad, and language, I suppose, is a game of opposites. So there were also times where I went out onto the field and I didn't feel like that. Times where I guess I just felt a little bit more jammed up, more limited. It felt like there was somebody who was doing. It felt like there was some sort of personal doership there, and that when I guess when I was trying to execute a skill or something like that, there were times where it would seem very difficult and I couldn't get my head around it, because the day before when I was doing it, it was really easy. It was just so easy. And the contrast between these two different places that I was coming from really got me, I guess, asking some questions, and it led to a little bit of exploration and a keen interest into, what was behind that, and why it was that at times where I felt jammed up and more limited, it seemed like my performance seemed to suffer somewhat. And it was really like that when I was younger. I would probably have described myself as quite an inconsistent player when I was younger. When I was clear, I felt like I was unstoppable. But then, when it was a bit cloudier and, there was a bit more thinking going on or whatnot, it felt like my performance was really at detriment. And it was telling me something about what I was capable of and what was going to happen in terms of the performance. So that was something that I recognised really early on, and I kind of, a few years had passed, and I got to 19, 20 years old, and my career had really progressed quite quickly. One of my sort of goals that I wanted to achieve from a really young age was to go on and play for Scotland, and I managed to achieve that at 20 years old. So I guess that when that happened, something really interesting occurred to me. And, I think this is the case for a lot of young people, and probably happens to a lot of people over the course of a lifetime. Some people it doesn't happen to. But, I had this dream, I had this goal that I wanted to go and play for my country. And I really thought that when I achieved that and when I got to that place, I would feel some sort of real fulfillment and life would seem a little bit different. And it's not that I didn't feel unfulfilled. There was times where I did feel very fulfilled, like I had a very privileged life and was brought up fantastically and all the rest of it. But, it's like I had in my head that when I got to this point, it would be like everything would be great. The money, the bloody birds, the women. Could say that, at least I still everything that comes with that kind of being in the limelight, people talking about you and your bloody photos up everywhere and all the rest of it. I honestly thought that when I got to that place, that I would feel different. I would feel a sense of fulfillment in my life, and I didn't, which was really, really interesting. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean to take anything away from the achievements and, how cool it was to play for my country and how awesome it was. It was absolutely unbelievable. But in general, I didn't feel much different. Like, I just felt like, you feel that the ebb and flow. You feel like you're in and you're out and you're clear and you're cloudy. And it got me questioning a few things about the way it is that we're kind of brought up and how the majority of us sort of see life. And I guess I got to a point in my life where I came to question a few things. I'd also met my now fiancée, Elisa. I'd just come back from New Zealand. I'd been out there for 4 months on a scholarship. And I was kind of starting to question a few things in my life. I found myself not so much involved in, you know, crazy bad habits or anything like that, but being out quite often with the boys, and, you know, like, obviously you go out and then you wake up the next day and you're kind of like, you know, like you start questioning, what is it that I'm actually doing here? Like, what is this? What's behind this? Why? When I was in a nightclub, say, I'd be saying to myself, like, why? What am I actually doing here? I don't even want to be here. So I guess I've got to a point where I was starting to question myself and starting to question the way I was going about life. And that's really when I was lucky enough to come across the principles. I came across first Jamie's book, Clarity. And I can remember feeling extremely low at one point, and then I think I went on Google and bloody typed in something, and that was the first book that came up. So I just got it. It was total lucky. I was reading Jamie's book, and there was really something in there that was speaking to me. There was some sort of, there was a sort of peace, and I can remember a quiet that came over me as I would sort of read and explore what he was talking about in the book. But I didn't have any understanding of what it was really getting at. But it took me somewhere. And I think I read the book in something like faster than I'd ever read a book before, and I kept going back to it again and again and again. I knew there was something in there. And then a few months had passed, and I guess I'd started to have a little bit of a different outlook on life. I just noticed certain things, like thinking patterns, when they sort of would happen. And it was like there was less of a bother about them, or I'd buy into them less. I wouldn't feel like I had to go and do the things that I didn't want to do. So I noticed some subtle changes. And then a few months passed, and I came back from training, and I was flicking about on the internet, and I came across some of Garrett Kramer's work, who I'm sure you guys might know. And I can remember just watching the video and having a really big insight. Can't really put it into words, but I remember just feeling like it was like a kind of penny dropping moment. And what he was talking about was that what we experience moment to moment, the feelings that we experience are strictly connected to our thinking, and are not connected to anything else. Although it may look like that at times, it's not the case. And I really saw something in that moment. You know, to put it into words now, what happened was, I guess, I fell into the moment. I fell directly into the moment, out of thought, out of everything that we kind of perceptions and feelings, and I fell directly into the moment. And it was really, really just, it was almost so subtle that you maybe wouldn't even notice it. Like, that's what I would say. And I guess after that happened, I just, I was like, what the hell is this? This is crazy. So that got me really interested in the principles and what they were all about. And the next couple of years was an exploration into the principles for me. And really, when it comes to performance, this is, I guess, I was really getting into the thick of it now, what we're here to talk about. The one thing that I have seen that is important when it comes to performance is, it comes back to the question, do you know who you are? Because when we're performing and when we're out there, doing our thing, whatever that might be, whether you're a speaker, whether you're a professional rugby player, or it could be anything, because performance, there's so many different aspects of performance. You could just be someone who works a day job and something like Tesco, or you could be a lawyer, you could be anything. We're always performing, we're always showing up in the world, and I guess that's kind of the way the world is. But for me, when it comes to performance, it comes back to the question, do you know who you are? And I guess once you've had a glimpse of who you are, you can then go out into the world and perform and understand that your well-being and your essence isn't up for grabs when it comes to what happens in those areas of performance. And let me give you an example of that. You know, it can seem so important being a professional athlete that you have to go out there and win. It's what you're paid to do. You know, it's what you've kind of been brought up to do, is to go out there and to perform and to win. And if you don't understand that your well-being can't be touched whether you win or lose, your experience is going to get extremely real. And it's not that it doesn't do that at times, because it already does do that, but it's going to be even more real. And you're going to be so much more invested in the outcomes, or put it this way, you're going to be so invested in other places other than the moment. You're going to be invested in places other than the moment if you don't understand that your well-being is not up for grabs. Because I guess when you look at it in rugby, if I don't understand that I'm okay, win, lose or draw, then I'm going to be coming from a place of desperation, absolute desperation. And you know, when I look to performance, and when I look to where great performance comes from, it doesn't come from a place of need. It doesn't come from a place of effort. It doesn't come from a place of trying so hard. It comes from a place of freedom. And freedom is in the moment. Freedom doesn't belong to the future or the past, or, you know, thinking about the outcome of something, or thinking about how something might go. It lies in the moment. And here's also an interesting paradox that I've kind of really started to see over the last few years. If you don't understand the ebb and flow of experience, for example, sometimes our experience is not going to seem like that. Our experience will seem limited. Our experience will seem like there's decisions to be made, and there's things that need to be done, and there's a lot of pressure on me to do these things. If you don't understand that, and that's how it's going to be at times, that will have an effect. That will seem to have an effect on your performance. I can say from this is absolutely true. There's times where I've went out onto the rugby pitch in the last few years, and I felt so insecure, and some of my best performances have been had at that point. Likewise, I felt so confident and so so there in the moment, and I've not had a good game. It's not, you see, like, if we believe our thinking, if we in that moment, if we don't understand that our thinking isn't always true, then when we feel jammed up, when we feel limited, we'll take whatever that experience may be shown us in a moment to be true. But it's not. It's simply the ebb and flow of experience. When we feel jammed up, when we feel cloudy, it's not telling us anything about our capabilities. It's not telling us anything about how something's going to go. It's simply telling us about the energy that we're experiencing in that moment. It's not a reflection of anything that's true. It's not a reflection of how something's going to go. And I think when it comes to performance, that is something that is important to see, but it's not essential to see, because it's not a hard and fast rule that athletes all over the planet will feel different going into each game. Some athletes will play really well, some athletes won't, and the same goes for everything else out there. But I think that in order to understand and get the most out of performance, it's important to understand the normality of all experience and to not try and get from one place to another. That will probably happen normally because it's just the way it is. You know, when we feel jammed up and limited, that in itself is an activity of who we are anyway. So trying to get from there to somewhere else is probably going to happen, but it doesn't. If we don't understand that the two sides of the same coin there, clarity and clutter, are normal, then we'll start to believe things about what we're capable of in those moments. So yeah, I think when it comes to performance, the one thing that I would say is, do you know who you are? And do you know that your well-being and who you are isn't up for grabs when it comes to what happens out there in the world? You know, because don't get me wrong, at times that gets clouded, and at times we may fall for the belief that the things that we think are true. But once we've had a bit of insight into who we are, you can never forget that. You can never actually fully forget that who you are is beyond your thoughts. Who you are is actually the place in which all thoughts rise, regardless of what thoughts they are. At some point, it will come back to us that, oh, wait a minute here. I took myself to be, you know, the character, or I took myself to be the thoughts that I was having. And then at some point, we start to get a little bit of distance from the thoughts. And then we realize, oh, wait a minute, that's not true. None of that was true. That was just activity. That was just what was happening at that moment in time. And there's no, there's no getting away from that. I think even the most enlightened people in the world, will say that experience is so transient. It's always transient. It's always chopping and changing. But if we know who we are and we've had insight into that, we can never really forget that. And I think that's an extremely important thing when it comes to performance. And it's something that I'm always reminding teammates, and sometimes I forget. I'll stick my hand up in there. I'm just as, the whole roller coaster of the human experience, clarity and clutter, I experience it just as much as anyone else. Like, it's crazy. But that knowing that clarity is actually, clutter is activity within clarity. And who is it that I am? I'm clarity. Like, clutter is simply just activity that happens within clarity. And when we know that that's who we are, clarity, then the whole roller coaster is okay. Like, the whole ride is okay. It's going to do what it does. It's going to go where it goes. We're going to fall for the belief that we're this, that we're that. But at some point, there will be a break in the clouds, and the blue sky will shine through again. So there's no. It's so much simpler than I think we most make out, and probably than I'm making out right now. But if we just begin to position ourselves as the clarity, we begin to position ourselves as that in which all experience arises, whether it be thinking, whether it be sensations, whether it be feelings, or whether it be perceptions. There is an awareness in which all of it arises, and that by nature is peaceful, and it's content, and it's happy. Now, once that recognition has taken place, we can just go for it. You know, like things will, and it will get bumpy at times because life's never, from my experience in this 25 years, is never straightforward. But I am, yeah, I'm grateful to have had that insight, and yeah, they keep coming my way. I guess, like, I keep forgetting it, and then it comes back. Keep forgetting it, and it comes back, and that seems to be the way it is. So that seems to be the most important thing for me when it comes to performance. Is just not remembering, but seeing who you are clearly, and then letting the rest of it unfold. You know, there's no magic trick or, you know, magic thing to know. It's just to know who you are, and you won't forget it. I don't know if anybody's got any questions or anything, but it might be helpful to get to maybe do some questions, or maybe talk about something a bit more specifically.
Yeah. Does anyone on the call want to come in at the moment? I had something while people are just taking an opportunity. I was just, I had an example today, Adam, and as you know, I've got a son who's much closer to your age, and when you were talking about that insecurity and how if we don't know who we are, if we're not in touch with that essence, that core, that essential core, then insecurity and desperation is inevitable. And about 18 months ago, my son was he was doing really well at university. He was at a top university and he was doing well, but he had decided that the next step was to get a job in one of 3 companies worldwide. And I don't know why he'd chosen them, and he couldn't see that those parameters had been made up by him. And he was desperate to get the jobs, and he got interviews, but he didn't get any of them. And he was desolate. He was desperate. You know, he really was. And he wasn't into this work. And he's really an atheist. That's how he's a self-proclaimed kind of atheist. So he's, but I absolutely respect everybody's kind of right to self-determination. And however, I think there is a truth in here that can be heard by anyone, and you know, that using the right language, and you have helped me with that, because I think that expression of knowing that the essence of you is not up for grabs speaks to anybody, whatever their creed, or, you know, agnostic, atheist, or whatever. And I began to talk to him a bit about that, and he got another job. He had an insight, and he found some headhunter, and he got a really good job, and he's been in it for a year, and he's done well. But the reason this is current, the reason this happened today, is he has now been headhunted by a number of companies, including one of his top 3, and he had an interview with them today, and he was talking to me the early evening, and he was just saying, "Mom, you know, it went really well, but it's not like they're no longer the holy grail for me." You know, I could just see, I knew that he might not use that language, but he knows who he is. You know, he knows that his value is not contingent on getting this or any job. He knows that what matters is not about that. I mean, it's nice to do well. It's nice to to perform well and to be recognised for that and all of that stuff. It's not that, but it's just that there's something far deeper, far more eternal, really, far more, and all of that stuff's transient. And that connection with the internal enables you to enjoy going for the transient, playing with the world of form, it seems to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, because in some ways I think that, you know, we're I guess culturally conditioned to live in this world and to, you know, go to school, go to uni, get a job, have our first relationship. And often I think that it can take an experience of that, and to be on that chase and to be on that kind of journey, to see that maybe that's not what it was that we were actually looking for, like, because that was the case with me. One sort of failed relationship with an ex-girlfriend, and then a sort of career that I thought was going to take me somewhere that I then realised, it was amazing, but maybe that's not it. And I think our culture kind of sets us up for it, obviously at all different varying degrees. Some people really, may take it very hard when something doesn't go their way, or they wanted to get a job and they didn't get it. But, these things there's wisdom behind these things, always. Like, I always think that the failures, that the things that have happened to us along the road have always, they can only be good things for the evolution of us seeing who we are. So it's really interesting you say that. It's like, it makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm a similar age to Dom. Like,
what I hear Adam saying is that when he knows who he is, he's somebody greater than himself, and he rises up into a space where he's in touch with consciousness, and he's in touch with something beyond his little self.
Yeah.
And at that point, he's in a place where he can flow and perform in the now, and he's not concerned with whether he's winning or losing. He's just performing the way, who he is.
Yeah.
That's the secret, to find a way to jump in or slide in to that place. So at that place, your son, Christine, in that place, he could charm right face to face now, all three of those interviews. But he could be something to who he is. And that's he's young, and that's what he has to learn. And that's part of what Adam is alluding to. I think it's great. Thanks, Adam, for sharing that.
Thanks, Stu. It's so good to see you on here.
It is.
Yeah.
That's sort of, no, Adam, go on.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy when we drop into that space of really being in alignment with who we are. It seems like things just become easy. Like, it's crazy. And it's not going to be that way the whole time. We're going to experience getting caught up in our thinking. We're going to experience going out there to perform and not feeling that way, not feeling in alignment with who we are. But once we know that that's who we are, then the rest of it doesn't seem to pack as much of a punch as it once did. It loses its grip on us. We become less invested in outcomes and things having to go a certain way, because we know that to some degree, we know that to different degrees all the time, but we know that what we're really looking for never loses us. What we're really looking for never actually goes anywhere. It's still there the whole time, regardless of how outcomes might go or what things might happen in life. It really is the key to living a life in alignment with love, passion, and understanding. It's it's crazy. Does anyone have any questions on?
Patsy's coming in.
Can I ask?
Oh, here we go.
Please. Just, I was a rugby girlfriend, wife, mother, ex-wife, and I've been and I've watched you guys do all sorts of things, and it kind of strikes me now that there must be a place for kind of things that you're talking about there being shared with your teammates. Because I know about the coaching stuff, I've seen all that rah-rah, very macho stuff. What you're talking about here is much more essential for what's going on inside all these guys, and it is mostly guys, I guess, they're still playing rugby. Has anyone ever asked you to share this kind of stuff with the team, or?
Yeah, I guess
you do it anyway.
I guess it just happens. Like, there was a point where, I'd come to see this a few years ago, and I really I made more of a conscious effort to speak about it and to share it with people, because it was so raw, and it was so, I guess it was so fresh for me to go from one perspective to completely waking up out of it. And because that happened, I did share a lot with teammates, and what I found was it sometimes made them a little bit uncomfortable, because you know what it's like with this stuff. If somebody's not ready to go on this journey and explore, then they go like that and say, no, I'm not into that. So what I found as kind of times past is that just through being and just living and being on WhatsApp groups with a group of 10 teammates, and the things that I write and the things that I share, not necessarily about this, but just about just little things, like dropping little things in there. I guess for them, they need to see. Well, this is one thing that I have seen that's been really interesting. I think for a while they lost a little bit of trust, because I kind of went like the opposite way from them. I kind of went like I'd woken up, so that is a natural thing that happens.
Yeah.
And I think they may have, their eyebrows were maybe raised a little bit and thinking, what's going on with this guy? And slowly as times went on, I think they've really began to see that I'm just still me. Like I'm still just a big idiot, that has fun and likes playing rugby and likes hitting things. And as that's kind of been seen again for them, they've sort of opened up to having these conversations a little bit more. What I see is that if there's usually somebody in the team that has something going on or wants to talk about something, normally they'll come to me. But I guess one of the things that I've seen with this as well is that you can't go about the place kind of trying to fix everybody's problems and whatnot. I would like to think that I'm just open, and most of the heavy lifting gets done through just being, and kind of just be in love, if you know what I mean. Like for instance, like on these WhatsApp groups and stuff that I'm in, it's just funny sometimes. Seems to be the new thing nowadays, like WhatsApp groups, and just some of the conversation that goes on between different players and people winding each other up, and you just all now and again drop something in like, let's just be nice to each other, let's just be loving towards each other, like just little simple things like that. And I think over the last 6 months I've started to see little shifts in the team where it's kind of the cool thing. It's now cool to be seen being loving.
That's something actually, for West of Scotland men, let's be honest.
I know, it's not at all. Like, for instance, on Instagram or something, I might post a photo and I'll put a not your stereotypical caption. It might just be like, oh, I love my girlfriend, or something like that. And as, I don't know, I think as that starts to happen, people start to then, I don't know, just be a little bit more comfortable with being that way, because there's no doubt about it. It is our essence. It's what we are. We care. We love. We understand. We want to be nice. It's what kind of makes sense to us. And we also have a kind of recognition that when we aren't being nice, there's an uncomfortableness there. So I think it's really interesting. I just, without being pushy about it, just sort of being and showing up and giving that kind of openness and I guess that kind of love that shines through more often than not, people do start to pick up on it. And as you say, I think the time is right, because in sport we see a lot of stuff in the media now about people struggling and careers finishing and players just getting lost, getting so lost and
burned out. I think that's the big thing, isn't it? Burnout.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It comes back to knowing who you are, and
for me, my consciousness is higher, is greater than my little self. When I can move up to my consciousness, rather than my inside consciousness, an outside consciousness that's greater than myself. When I can move into that who I am as part of that consciousness, then I become into the kind of performance that Adam is talking about. That's what makes sense to me. We squash our consciousness into our brain, that our consciousness is greater than ourselves. And when you get into that, whoo, anything can happen because
It's like, no.
you are. Yeah, there he is. See, that's what he's doing. He's got it. He's got it. And that's exactly it. We squash our consciousness, think we are an individual consciousness. I'm taking care of me. I'm separate. I don't give a damn for anybody else. But when we open up, our consciousness is greater than all of us. So when we move up to that, then we are that Adam. I'd love to see you perform, Adam. I've never had, but I know it'd be fun to watch you. I got to take off, but it's good talking to you guys. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thanks for being
here. Thanks, Stu. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
I hope to get you on another call, another conversation.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Oh, there we go. Oh, I'm glad Stu came on here. I've been talking to him a bit on Messenger, but it's the first time I've... but it is really interesting. You know, I think when one or two people within an organisation start to see a little bit differently, how that definitely filters down, and other people start to just be a little bit more comfortable with the emotions and the experience that all human beings experience, whether you're male, female, or whatever. You know, like, you know, there's still this kind of stereotypical, you know, sportsman way of seeing things and whatnot, but it's nonsense. It's all with the nonsense. It's and the quicker that we can break through that and actually just see that we're all the same thing. You know, the men and women, we're all the same thing. We all experience what we are as consciousness. You know, it's so crazy. Sometimes sometimes I almost forget that I'm a man sometimes. That sounds ridiculous, but you know, like it's actually truth. Like it's truth coming through, because that's not what I am. Yes, that's what I am in this unit of a body, but who I actually am is not a man. Like, that's just conditioning that I've came to believe. It's thoughts that I've came to believe, and perceptions. And of course, that is what I am in at the moment, but it's not my reality. My reality is that I am just pure consciousness. And that, in truth, when those little things come through us like that, it's not even a thing. It's just little glimmers of, you know. And it's crazy because all these young men out there that are wanting to meet women and speak to women, and they're so in their heads and so jammed up that the woman is so different to them. It's just not true. You know, it's like, it's crazy. What they're actually looking for is what we're talking about here, to free them and to open them up to the sameness of everything. You know, when we're actually talking to someone else, we're not talking to them, we're just talking to ourselves. You know, that's it. It's not, you know, and of course it seems and looks like they're different to us, but it's actually the same thing that is actually recognizing the words that we're speaking. It's the same one thing that's happening. So there's, yeah, it's crazy. It's, you know, I think as time goes on, I certainly see myself just being a little bit more, and through that, people are definitely picking up, because nobody likes getting told what to do or how to be or what's right or what's wrong. It's like that's all just coming from the mind. You know, there's nothing that's, what we're talking about here has no opposite. You know, anything that has an opposite is a relative thing in the world of form. What we're actually trying to get at here is, well, what is all of that in? Like, what is that? What is the one thing that you can't objectify? And that is you. And And it's so overlooked, but it's so obvious. It's shining right in front of us the whole time. So yeah, we're getting there slowly. See my teammates posting things about loving their girlfriends, and I'm like, yes.
Good.
when you're saying that it's right in front of us, sometimes do you not find though it's like when you try and look at it, you lose it. It's kind of like that peripheral vision thing where you get the feeling of it, but as soon as you try to focus on it or look at it, you lose it. I think. Well, I do. I don't know about anyone else, but
exactly, because that's the character within trying to look for what it's in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's so if you imagine all thoughts and perceptions take place within something, and in a moment of time, or it's not even in time really, that character, it's actually the character that falls away into the hole, and then the character comes back looking for what it fell into. But actually, it's the character's in the hole. The character is the hole. You know, it's actually all one thing. It's like a dog chasing its tail. You know, like it's just it's going to keep going round in circles. It will never find it there. But occasionally we do drop out of it, because the mind, I guess, us as the character and as this subject that we believe and feel ourselves to be, because the mind's an activity, because what that is an activity within the whole thing. You know, like we find ourselves kind of falling out of it, and then it's like, oh, what was that? You know, you ever had that experience of like, oh, what was that? And then it's gone. You know, like, and that's because it's actually the one thing. There's not two things there, but it seems like there's two things there, but it's one thing within the whole. The character, who we believe and think ourselves to be, is actually in the whole thing. But we either experience ourselves as the whole thing or as the character. Like it's one or the other. It's not both. It's not like it's not that we can be sitting in the middle. It's one or the other, and that's clarity and clutter. It's the same thing. It's the play of it's the play of it all. Sometimes we believe ourselves to be a limited thinker that, you know, is limited to this body and to this mind, and at times we drop out of that, and it seems like when we drop out of that, it's like effortless. It's just so it speaks to us so much when that happens. And the crazy thing is as well, by the way, it used to happen to me all the time when I was young, but nobody ever pointed it out for me. Like, it's like we now have eyes for it, and it's not that, like, it's like it has eyes for itself. You know, because that's what's happened. It's woken up to itself. You know, we've realised that we're not actually this finite character. Where yes, that comes along sometimes, and it seems that that's what we are. But that thing doesn't actually exist. That is within the whole thing, and what we are is the whole thing. And that is what spiritual awakening is. That's what happens when people wake up, or in most cases, transformation happens. It's that happens. True transformation, anyway. We see that what we believed and thought ourselves to be is now a figment of our imagination. It's just a figment of consciousness. It's conditioning. It's always changing. It's always taking different shapes. It's always, but that in which that is seen in never changes shapes. You know, when we were 10 years old, when we were 5 years old, when we were 15, yes, our thoughts, feelings, and perceptions all change and look different. But the sense of aliveness, the sense of
who we are,
that was always the same. Like it could never ever have changed. But it seems like it's changed. But that's just what's around it that's changed. You know, this, you call it a sense of being. There's a sense of being there, and that never changes. It's what surrounds it. It's not even what surrounds it. It's what comes up in it that does change, and will always change. So whatever it changes to, it's okay. Just gotta, yeah. We just remember who we are.
Thanks, Andrea. Susan, I'm just wondering, we're coming to our last few minutes. I wonder if I don't know if you're actively listening, or maybe you're maybe that's why your camera's off. But if you'd like to come in, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, I am actively listening. I haven't been very long because I had been hosing my horses down, giving them a shower today, so I came in drenched. And I was late to join. Listening to this is the first I've actually sort of sat in and listened to Adam talking. Although I did meet you, Adam, at one of Christian's meetings way back. And you said something there, and Christian picked up on it herself. And it just kind of, you'll not be aware of this, but it just hit me like a sort of bolt there. What you said was the essence of who you are is not up for grabs. And yet I've known that, I've come to know that, but that's the clearest I've ever heard it put into words. And just that sentence just said it all, really. And I think if I've taken nothing else away tonight, that will stick. It just, I don't know why, but it has. It just, it's kind of, because I've been going through my own transition for a few years now since I came across the principles, and I think I first went along to something at Mugdock Park, I think, with Christian, and it just gradually, I've read Clarity. It was the first book I came across, and discovered Sydney Banks through that, and it's just grown. And then going through a transition with regards to work and career and all the rest of it, feeling that it was sucking the lifeblood out of me. I always liken it to as if I'm in water, and where am I with regards to the surface of the water, under the water, down towards the seabed. And when you hit the seabed, you really can't go any further down. So you're floating up and down somewhere in there. And I've been coming up further and further and further to the surface. Fighting. What I've been fighting with is to protect the essence of who I am and who I knew I always was, against this conditioning that we have to deal with in life, and we all have different experiences of that. And I think it's been a gradual process for me. And to when I come across someone, because I think it'd be fair to say that, again, I have sons and daughters of your age and older, to hear someone have such a depth of understanding at your stage in life is wonderful. And just to hear you say that tonight, that just said it all for me. Didn't need to, there's not much more I can add to it. So thanks. The next time I'm walking in and I think I don't want to be here, there's just nothing can really get inside and take who you are away. But most people don't know that. Some do, but most people don't. And I think that's what I meet so much misery day to day working. I'm a general practitioner, and workplace sales, and I meet a lot of the males and females who fall into the criminal justice system, who believe that they are the character, who have never known themselves to be anything else, and the mental ill health that comes with that, separation from mental health. So yeah, this is. I could just get this out. It is getting there. I mean, there's work, good work, and it's being done, Christian, and the podcasts and webinars and work in schools and prisons now, and it is starting to. I think that the tide is starting to turn, which is good. It's I've certainly come a long way. Just a pity it took me 50 years to do it, but it certainly turned my life around. I don't know. I can't tell you exactly when. I have a couple of instances when things really shifted, like a couple of big shifts, which I'll not go into now because that's another story. But yeah, it just hearing that the essence of who you are is not up for grabs. Yeah. So yeah, that's
lovely. Yeah.
It's my big one tonight.
Yeah, it is lovely. Thank you, Adam. You're muted.
Sorry. Keep that one close to your heart, Susan.
Yeah.
You felt it.
Yeah,
That's
I absolutely just. I thought, what did he just say?
You felt it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
We are just coming. That's just 9 on the dot. One of the things I loved, Adam, was just the idea that it's cool to share that you love your girlfriend in your WhatsApp group. I just love that little trickle, that ripple effect.
It's cool to just, I think just love in general. Like, it's so funny. Like some of these, I've been guilty of it in the past as well. But when somebody's maybe being an arse, or someone in the team's trying to like rip the piss out of you or whatever, and you're just like, it's just like love them back. It's like it's such a good teacher. It's such a great way to express this, because there's so much of it that goes on within young men, like just chirping away at each other, and and some people are really uncomfortable with it, but as you start to see clearly a little bit more that who you are is not up for grabs, and then people do that to you, and it's like, whatever. It teaches them a lot. It does teach them a lot. It's crazy. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming on tonight. It's been good to chat and just have a conversation. Really, I never really plan these things. Just see how it comes out, and yeah, it's been really good. I've enjoyed the questions and stuff as well. It's been great.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you making the time to come on, and thank you everybody that joined us. It was really, great questions, really nice contributions, and yeah, I'll just stop the recording.